Hello, everybody. This is Amy Starr Allen. Welcome to the Living in Alignment podcast. I have a special episode for you guys today. I am joined in person with one of my favorite people in the entire world, Mr. Chris Rocheleau. And we're sharing a mic today. So if you're watching the video, you'll see us doing all kinds of shenanigans over here. But I'm super excited to be here with Chris and to share Chris with you guys because, like I said, he's one of my favorite people on the planet. He's just chock full of so much wisdom and insight. And I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode. So how are you doing, Chris?
Pretty good so far. Starting off all right. No technical issues, right?
Yeah. So we decided that Chris didn't want to know anything that I was going to ask him. I don't even know what I'm going to ask him. We decided to this is how we roll, unscripted from the heart. So this should be a really awesome, juicy conversation.
And I think it's probably interesting to note that we probably have over hundreds of hours of unscripted going off each other on lives and, Q&As and everything. So
yeah, Chris and I used to be business partners and we used to do a weekly, it wasn't Zoom back then, it was Google Hangouts. And we would do a weekly Google Hangout that would sometimes go on for 3 hours. And none of those were scripted either, but somehow we were able to captivate an audience for 3 hours while we rambled on about all the different things we rambled on about. So I have no doubt we'll be able to do that today successfully. So where should we start? Do you want to tell people how we know each other or,
Tell them.
So we met, did you say 2011 was the year that we met?
I think it's 2012.
Or 2012. We both were involved in a company way back when. And we met through that. Chris was technically above me in the lineage of the company. And we met after I just got in and started producing, which if you've ever heard the advice, if anyone's ever given you the advice of how to get the attention of your upline or of a leader in your company or whatever, one way to do that is to just get results. And that's kind of what happened. And then I met Chris for the first time in person at an event, right? And yeah, so we just immediately hit it off and started creating some cool stuff together. And we built a big team together in that company and just had like a really good synergy, learned a lot from each other, had a lot of fun in the process. We had a lot of success. We rented a mansion for our team in Breckenridge one year. And it wasn't just like all fun and games. We did like a lot of training that week. We had some really cool stuff. We did another event at an Omni outside of Boulder, Colorado, where we had like videos made for all the people that came, branding videos and stuff. So we've done a lot of really cool stuff over the years. And I don't know, you want to add anything to that about?
Well, that event, I realized how we grossly undercharged for the knowledge we gave. You make that distinction only by doing so when you over deliver so much, and then you realize, wow, we kind of almost went broke on that. But so many people had so much success come out of that and came to us later. A lot of them that said they came, out of that event and learned so much, and it really propelled them to a whole other place in their business and in their life. So grateful for it.
Yeah.
Great experiences.
Yeah. Really good stuff. So, do you want to share a little bit about what your journey where your journey has led you up until to where you're at now, and kind of any insights that you want to share that might be helpful along your path? Chris is still extremely successful and kind of walking his own path like he always has. So
I guess that's more shaping the theme of the conversation, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, it came down to, after, we had a lot of success in that company and building that and building a team. And, what came out of that for me, obviously, was it's like I kind of grew up in it. I kind of discovered and realized who I really was at a deeper level. It's what some of those things really facilitate and do is you start to realize, at a deeper level who you are. I had some fundamental realizations that once those changed, I realized how much of your prosperity and your success and your happiness comes from being in tune with yourself. And for so long, being in a privileged position in that company, I was able to be around people that I may not have considered at my level at the time, but they always made, nudges in certain conversations, kind of not directly, but, alluding to, hey, you're so much more than what you're doing or what you're exuding, what you're putting out, what you're expressing. And so it brought me to a realization where it kind of coalesced one night into a moment where I like saw my whole life flash before my eyes. And it was really interesting because every moment where I was devaluing myself and honoring somebody else, but dishonoring myself in the process. And a lot of that came from what I see a lot of people doing is they have this fundamental disbelief in themselves, and their only way to fix that is to follow and model and emulate those they want to be like, which obviously is a great part of the process, but oftentimes can be a little limiting if you don't realize your own self-worth in the process. And that's what I went through. And so when I had that happen, I started to see all of that. Like I broke into tears because I realized like, wow, I haven't shown up as my authentic self to people. I would essentially, like, everyone liked me and everyone got along with me and I got along with people just fine. But what I didn't realize is some of those friends and mentors, I wasn't allowing them to respect me and see the greatness in me because I wasn't allowing it to come out. That was an interesting thing. I had a mentor once that said, you have more talent in your pinky finger than I have in my entire body, and you don't even know it. And, but, I think everyone has, unique talents and gifts. And I think the blessing that happened for me is that I had that in a particular way that fit exactly what we were doing. And when I realized that and realized that self-worth and that authenticity, being honest with myself, which is what a lot of people don't do. They look for outside confirmation of ideas and things that they're fed and taught and told to do, model, be, and even quotes to pick up and live by. Oftentimes it can be an interesting double-edged sword at times. Often I try to encourage people to do a lot of their own thinking along the way. And what's great about that is they do. And then sometimes you're like, well, no, wait, hold on. Don't do that because, you're hold on. Like, and then you sometimes wonder, like, should I really take someone where they're at and go, here's what you're capable of, start to critically think for yourself and really find out what happens for you and what you want. Because when I started to realize my self-worth, like everything in my life took off. My income took off. My relationships took off. All of those things, our team came together. And it was me being able to go to another level and understand my worth and my understanding of myself that allowed me to work with all of you and create the team and have something that was really special for people to grow within, right? It was a safe space to be able to grow within and cultivate those things. Everyone was at a different point in their journey. And so, what I take that back where, sometimes, we take someone aside and say, you're not living up to your full potential right now. And, here are some of the things you want to keep in mind as you do so. And sometimes you see them go off and it's like, oh my goodness, what did I do? And you almost wonder, like, is it ethical for me to kind of set someone free, And when you look at it in the long run, every person has always come back to me and said, I'm so grateful for that quick conversation we had. The one thing you said that, might have been difficult to even hear at the time, but, was what I needed to hear. And I think that was one of the biggest realizations for me, is that to communicate with people and what you realize they need to hear, not necessarily tell them what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. And that was the difference. That was where my authentic self wasn't always showing up. And so when I had that realization, it's like I made a complete pivot to, I'm going to live in this truth and live in my truth in every moment with everybody, no matter what. And everything changed around me. People showed up differently to me, talked to me differently, asked me my opinion in a different way. And then had a lot of people also, when I told that realization and that story, that would reach out and say it really impacted me and it set me on a different path. So I knew it was the right way to go. Although sometimes in the short term, it could be a little, depending on the person, right? Some people, they're not entirely ready to be set free, because then they're like, well, what do I do now? But looking back at it, it has never been a bad thing in my mind to move someone along in their growth. But what I had to get comfortable with was coming from a place where I see you, and if I find someone that's not really living up to their core being, I point it out. And it might be hard at the time, but it's a catalyst for what comes later, and it's worth it. And I've always had people come back to me and tell me that. So there's this interesting side of me that was always so much about getting along with people and pointing out the great things in them, but then not pointing out the great things in me, which would have made my statements to them even more powerful when I came from a place of my own, owning my own power, my own authority, and not doubting myself. That's oftentimes the core of it, is people don't trust themselves because they're in a new space and they're looking for outside validation in terms of how to trust themselves. And it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the bullying aspect, and what's the best thing. And you were telling me, the best thing that you can do for kids if they're being bullied is, give them martial arts, get them martial arts training. And oftentimes the reaction to that would be, why? So they fight, and it's not that at all. We both know it doesn't happen. And that's what helped me actually as a child as well. Because after you have that confidence in yourself that comes from martial arts, carry yourself differently, and you don't actually get bullied because you carry yourself differently and you have that confidence. So I think that was played a big part of it. And also sports, accepting when you lose and being okay with it, rather than the participation aspect and how you play, which is important as well. But, oftentimes, you see people who don't lose very easily. They don't lose well. They don't take that and channel that into desire and motivation to transmute that energy into something positive,
to improve.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I love about you, Chris, is that you really speak without like filtering. Like you were saying, like you don't tell people what they want to hear. Just so you guys know, like I'm on a road trip right now across the country, and I'm visiting Chris, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And, even with the stuff that's going on in my life right now, I've got some personal challenges. And, what I really value in a friend and in a person is somebody who isn't afraid to tell you the truth, even when it's not easy to hear. And Chris has always been one of those people for me, but I've watched him be that person for a lot of other people as well, just like he was just saying. And that's where a lot of growth comes for the people that are able to receive that, because, you're speaking to my heart when you're speaking about setting people free to be fully self-expressed. I feel like a lot of people want to be like somebody else. They're trying to, modeling is fine to a certain degree. If you're trying to, you're new and you're trying to learn something, and you're modeling some of the strategies or some of the behaviors of people that have gone before you, but trying to show up like somebody else and be like a cookie cutter clone of somebody else can only get you so far. You really, one of my most things I'm most passionate about is really helping people to own their voice and to do things in a way that feels right to them, in alignment for them. And that's going to be different for each and every person. Your marketing strategy is going to depend on what feels good to you, the way that you speak, the way that you dress, the way that you show up in the world. Like I could see somebody that wears dresses and red lipstick who's super successful and think that I have to do that to be successful. Well, if I do that, if you guys know me, that's not me. And now I'm not fully self-expressed. And so even if I'm pretending to be fancy and dressed up or whatever, and I'm putting on this facade, inside, I'm not going to show up authentically and fully self-expressed. And that is, I can only go so far doing that. So I love that, that's just the way that you've always kind of helped people. And we've seen a lot of people that were on our team go on to do great things. And a lot of that I know is because of some of the belief that Chris spoke into them, not in a fluffy bullshit kind of way, but in a way that, like honest way. Again, like tough love sometimes, or just, whatever kind of feedback that he sees that could actually really make a difference for somebody. So,
yeah, I mean, I think, the easiest way to start with things is, it's like you have Simon Sinek, start with why. Love it. I agree. There are people that try to say, no, it's different. You start with what, or start with this or that, and they have their own little thing. And I mean, my thing about it is first start with truth. Let's start with being honest with ourselves about who we are, where we're at, and give ourselves a little credit for who we are and where we're at. And remember that all of us are a piece of the human spirit, and tap into that. Like, that's why I would always say, oftentimes, I believe in the power of the human spirit. I believe in the soul of the human spirit. And that is something that everybody is a part of. And they don't realize that. They think they're just this physical body that's just, in a place where they have their own prejudices and belief systems and doubts about themselves. And, oftentimes that's why you see some of the best content come out when someone's just like wide open, and not with no agenda of being attached to how something is supposed to look or how it's supposed to be. And oftentimes there's great things that come out of that, So, yeah.
Yeah. So, the other thing that I've watched Chris do that I love, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, Chris, too, is like, where he's gone since the days of being in a network marketing company together. He's kind of exited from that industry and doing his own thing. And he's a master at his craft. He's an incredible marketer, and he has been able to help a lot of people have a lot of huge results with his help. And I think it's just a really good example of not being afraid to do something that kind of goes against the norm, because what he does with people, with his clients, and what he teaches is a little contrarian, but it works. And it's just such a great example of why, like I always say, everything in marketing is an experiment. And I think a lot of people are afraid to try things that aren't like some formula that they learned somewhere years ago or whatever about how you have to do a launch, or how you have to run an ad, or how you have to do your marketing strategy. I think the best way to really find something that's going to work is to try different things. And then, one of the things that I really admire about Chris too is he's always been willing to do what it takes to become a master at whatever it is that he's doing. And I think that's something that a lot of marketers don't do, because, they try a strategy. If they don't get results after 5 days, then they move on to another strategy. And if they don't get results after 5 days, they move on to another strategy, and they never become a master at anything. The results come from mastery. And I think that's one of the reasons why Chris has had the results that he's had personally. I think it's definitely the reason why he's been able to make such a huge difference in so many companies that hire him for help, is because he's a master. And so I don't know, can you speak to that a little bit about?
Yeah, I mean, either that or crazy, I mean, there can be some of that in there too. To even get to a place of mastery, you've got to suspend all disbelief and prejudice and the outcome that you're looking for to let it unfold into what it is. And so, yeah, I learned this, one particular thing that I was able to translate quite a bit, and it made a bigger difference. But it was something that even when I was on, some Q&A calls, and I had people come back to me later about some of these calls I did, they would say, that the thing that always stood out to me, and that I always, when I think of these words, I think of you. And even years later, after just, being on like a Q&A, open Q&A about marketing and, business and entrepreneurial mindset and everything. And they said, you had this 2-word phrase that you would use, and it was choose mastery.
Mm.
And in choosing mastery, what does that really mean? And it means that, for one, you can have the definition like Malcolm Gladwell that says, 10,000 hours. And there's something to that. I definitely agree with some of that. But also it's the resolve that you have when something isn't working the way you think, and to think that it's you can use a strategy someone showed you and microwave it into results for you. And oftentimes, that's what can be misleading at times, is you see someone's success and then you look at what you understand, and only you understand, about where your cognitive biases are. And you say, well, what I see is they get up at 9 or they get up at 8 and they eat this particular thing for breakfast every day, and they do these particular things, and they read this book. And because they read this book and eat this for breakfast, that's the winning formula.
Right.
I actually had someone who was an employee of mine who literally was like, I'm watching everything you do, even what you eat for breakfast, because I want to know the secret of success. And I'm like, don't give up on the first thing you tried so easily. How about let's start there, And so oftentimes it's kind of like the same thing where, and I don't want to get too much into this, but like oftentimes where the quality of the question asked is where we should focus, not necessarily the answer. Because the question being asked is the difference. Oftentimes I have people come to me now where, in the world that I play in, oftentimes I'm doing ads and advertising in a way that is different from others. And so like on a social media post, I'll write a long copy ad, and a lot of people, right away see the length of it and they're like, well, I'm going to get so few clicks and that's not efficient. And every cost, is going to be a lot more per click than anything else, because, so few people are going to finish reading that long post. And so the question they're asking is long copy better than short copy? And that precludes the fact that maybe there's a happy medium somewhere in between that might be better.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the question either. The question really is, which any copywriter will know, is, how long does it need to be? As long as it needs to be. Whatever it takes to properly display and get your message across without losing attention. So it's important, your structure and all of those things that you work on, and you only learn by doing and seeing what doesn't work, and learn how to structure your sentences and everything the right way. But, what I had to say to people is, I had a partner agency owner, because I own an agency, and he came to me and he said, my main operator doesn't believe in long copy. And I said, he's asking the wrong question, because the question should not be, does long copy work or does short copy work? They both work, just how well. And the real question should be, am I saying all the right things in the copy? Because you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person, right? And fortunately, with algorithms and, artificial intelligence and machine learning, we're able to better filter people throughout, different platforms in the way that we message and how people react. So it helps when you just put out what is the right message, and then they find the right people. And that's kind of the gift of social media with YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all of those. To one varying degree or another, they all have this machine learning aspect of like responding to how people behave, right? And so, write the message for the right person and they'll find them usually, if you give it a chance. But the real question there is, back to the concept of, are we asking the right question? And oftentimes the question is what's being said need to actually be said and in the right order for it to work? Not, is it too long or too short? Like, that's missing the forest for the trees if you're looking just at structure. But it's like the same thing back to my assistant, who was like, I want to know what you eat for breakfast. I want to know what your morning routine is. Well, I get up, coffee, run, shower, get to work. I mean, there's nothing profound about that. And some mornings that's not in that order. And sometimes I don't do barely any of it, like it's the interesting thing of, at what level are you asking the question, and the quality of the question asked. I think the takeaway is, learn to cultivate asking the right questions. This is what opens your perception up, rather than taking what someone gives you as an answer to a question you may not have asked. So you have no basis as to whether or not to see if that answer that you're given, like a quote to live by, really applies to you or not. And oftentimes I think the issue here is it comes, and I think this ties back around to the insecurity and the self-doubt that people have, where, okay, I'm not a master. I see people having a lot of success. I'm not. So why is it that, what can I learn from them? It's usually not by watching. Everybody has kind of a way they do things, and the way doesn't necessarily matter as much as the what and the how. And one could argue the how and the way are the same, but they are different. It is different. And with that, I think that the quality of the question asked, and then don't discount the thoughts that come up, because I like to question everything. I'm kind of contrarian by nature, as we've talked about. And so someone says something and everyone else is like, yay, this is great. I love this concept. I love this truth. I love this thing. And I'm like, why? Why is that the case? And look to project out, okay, well, if that is the case, how does that play out? What does that ultimately lead to? What kind of outcome will that activity lead to? Will that answer lead to? And maybe we should ask a better question. So that's often what fills my day, is when I'm looking at things and analyzing things and looking at ways to solve problems. I'm like, okay, it's not about trying to find the answer to a question I have. It's, am I asking the right question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, on the topic of mastery, it's been cool to kind of watch your evolution, because just to give you guys a little bit more of the backstory here. So when we were building a team together, Chris started becoming a master at Facebook ads and like writing these story ads. And he kept diving in deeper and diving in deeper. And this is what mastery is. Like we said, it's not, I'm not getting results, so I should try a different strategy. It's like optimizing and split testing and optimizing until you become a master. And and so he was able to develop this whole process for writing story ads that he was then able to teach to our team in a very in a
formulaic
somewhat formulaic structure that's easy to apply and easy to remember. And other people started having results. And but he didn't stop there. So after after all of that ended, he's continued to tweak and test and make it go deeper with it and deeper with it. And now he has a Facebook ad agency where he helps companies get like that sell, like what's the pet stuff that you have, like
pet stain and odor remover,
like all kinds of stuff like that. He's able to write their long copy Facebook ads that they end up getting results for years from like a single ad, right? And it's all because he took the time to become a master at this craft. And now he gets paid the big bucks to apply his mastery to any business that anybody needs help with. And so I just love this as an example, because I feel like, number one, a lot of times as marketers, we're not willing to become a master at anything because we have shiny object syndrome and we're kind of all over the place. But so to find something that you're willing to just take it all the way and run with it all the way to the point where, not only can you help yourself and your own marketing with it, but now he has a skill that has helped so many other people. And it's just been awesome to watch that all unfold.
And at the sake of not making this a commercial or a plug or anything, right? Actually, quite the contrary. Some may listen to this and might reach out for help. And I just would want to kind of preface up front that if we work with just about any business, but there's a lot that we turn down and a lot that we turn away. We're still smaller and very premium in that respect in terms of what it costs. But if you have a business where it's a network marketing business or an affiliate business, just off the jump real quick, we cannot jeopardize our current clients who are in other niches where we could get our business managers or accounts shut down. So we don't, as a rule, accept any network marketing businesses or affiliate businesses, oftentimes because of compliance reasons with Facebook and the certain social media platforms. As we know, navigating that, it's kind of a subjective thing, and we have to stay out of the subjective. So obviously, if you're a business owner with a particular business or product that is not particularly sold as a network marketing opportunity or an affiliate, then we could always talk. But other than that, like, the answer is already no. Just as before I start getting people to reach out, I just want to preface that we'll say we're sorry, we'd love to help you, but based on our loyalty to our customers, we can't jeopardize that and take that risk. So yeah. But ultimately, I think you may not really need my help if you're really coming from a place of truth and being honest with yourself. That type of relating that you can do, people resonate with anyway. When it really comes from a core place of the human spirit and speaking your truth, you want to repel the people that are not like you. You don't need that in your life. You don't need that in your business, because if you're willing to accept anything, you'll accept the lowest common denominator of a person that is willing to be unethical, dishonest, and also not forthright and forthcoming in what they're doing. And you just don't want that, right? So speaking your truth is going to allow you to live in alignment and bring in the right people and definitely repel the wrong people. It's like this thing in business where we say in marketing, you can't be everything to everybody. You can only be something to somebody. And trying to be all things to everybody is the biggest recipe for going broke and bankrupt. And we know that, right? So it's the same thing here. Like, you don't want everybody. Some of those people that will come in and join your business, you don't want the riffraff, right? Because that can grow into a cancer. And we experience that, in our teams and such too. So encouraging you to stay true to yourself. And when you stay true to yourself, you don't have to worry about the wrong people coming in, because you'll be able to identify it if you do, and it'll feel wrong, and you can address it early on rather than later. So some of the dilemmas that we see where you have someone who comes into a company and they shoot up to the top of the leaderboards, and everyone's like, oh my God, I want to learn what they learn. And then you realize they're a master at what they do, and they've been doing it for years, and they've leveraged a massive list or community of people already that they may have stolen from somebody else. And you don't want those parasites in your business. You want people who want to be able to give back from a place of service, not from a place of taking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel like it comes down, a lot of this living in alignment comes down to intuition. And we have, as human beings, we all have intuition. We all know right from wrong, and we can sense. I mean, I know for me, I have really strong intuition. Being in the home business industry, I've developed a really strong intuition of like a really strong like red flag around certain people or companies or policies or whatever it is. Like I'm not available for that anymore in my space, and as Chris knows, and anybody that's on any team I've ever had knows, I have this mama bear thing about me where I become very protective of my team too. So when I see somebody doing things that aren't in alignment in general, like somebody that's, yeah, they're at the top of the leaderboard, but they're doing like black hat marketing strategies that aren't necessarily ethical. And so they're just in it for the money. They're not in it to be of service. I don't want my team to be influenced by that. And I get very protective about that, because to me, that's not, it's not how I strive to be, or how I strive to run my business, or who I strive to be as a marketer. And as a team leader, I always want to show my team, that there are so many ways to be successful with marketing that don't involve any of those black hat strategies, or anything that's, like people become, like Chris was saying, people do become a master at things that aren't necessarily like, I guess ethical is the word I'm looking for. But like, for example, I always think about the people that like know how to hack into websites, or they hack into people's bank accounts and stuff like that. Like, these are really smart people. They're masters at what they do. And I always thought to myself, what would the world be like if these people that are so smart would use their smart ability to do something good in the world? Like, imagine what that would be like, because they're so smart that they're able to like steal money out of random people's bank accounts. Or what really has always kind of perplexed me is the people who like, they hack into people's websites and put viruses on people's websites and cause suffering that they can't even see, but they still get off on doing it. Like they're like, hey, I'm causing viruses and there's people out there suffering and I don't even see them suffering. I'm not getting any monetary reward for it. I just love that there are people suffering from the viruses that I have created on their computers. Like, to me, I don't even know how we got onto this topic, but like, I just wish that there were, like, if everybody would just do stuff that's like really in alignment for the greater good, we can all be successful doing that without having to think that we have to model after somebody that's doing anything that's kind of weird. And some of these black hat strategies are not easy to learn. It's not like, they're not even anything I want to learn personally, but like when I see my team members or whatever thinking that they have to model somebody's behavior that's getting results, and I'm like, no, you don't want to do that strategy. And that strategy is not that easy to do anyway. Mm-hmm. I don't even know how to do it, but it's not the best way to grow. And it's, a lot of those strategies are often short-lived anyway. And here, we're talking about like with what Chris has become a master of, and becoming a master in general of like something else that's heart-centered and principle-centered. These are the strategies and ways of doing business that stand the test of time. They're not flash in the pan. There are a lot of flash in the pan strategies that go along with what specific algorithms happen to be doing this week. Or, yeah, I mean, you even know with Facebook, you can even talk about Facebook specifically, because he's a master at Facebook ads. Like, Facebook changes their policies in ways that hurt Chris's strategies. Like we just recently had the big iOS, all the changes with the iOS privacy, and that changed the game completely for him. But did he jump ship and like start over at the beginning with another strategy? No, he had to, figure out a way to roll with that, and I think that's part of mastery. Do you want to talk about what your journey's been like around all of the changes we know happen on a daily basis with technology?
Yeah. I mean, and one thing just to add to your point a bit ago is, in our team, it's like we always, even Jordan and I, we would talk about Amy's the canary in the coal mine. That if she sees something and we don't see it, she's like, hey, this is going on and we need to address this right away. So we always saw like, okay, well, if Amy has a concern, then we probably should look at what's going on there, because we don't always see it, and even if it was more innocent behavior from someone that just doesn't know any better, it's like, okay, well, you would point it out and it's like, okay, let's go address it, which was always nice. And so having that more of that moral compass to be able to see what goes on and what will be around the corner if that is not addressed is always a big thing too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mama bear.
yeah, and so the other question here, essentially, I'm almost losing my train of thought here.
With all the changes in technology, if you want to speak specifically about Facebook and what that's been like as far as staying the course in the face of all of the changes, as we know, technology changes on a daily basis at this point.
Yeah.
And I've also heard it said that the rate that technology is changing is growing exponentially on a daily basis. So not only is technology changing really quickly, but it's the rate that it's changing is getting faster and faster and faster every day. So in order to be successful as a marketer or as a master in a specific marketing strategy, we need to be able to roll with the punches.
Yeah. And with Facebook, I mean, especially with them, with the model of move fast and break things, that doesn't necessarily leave room and give you a warm and fuzzy about systemizing something, because if they change something, then it breaks your system, right? And that has been a constant battle that has been increasing in its nature of how fast those things change that you have to adapt and adjust to. And it's not for the faint of heart, right? Had I not gone through my experiences in the company we were in and learning to have resolve and trust myself, when a lot of these things changed and a lot of my clients lost, half of their optimization power, or let's say their cost to acquire a customer all of a sudden doubled. That's tough to weather, not only for me, but for my clients, right? And so we had to get creative again and ask the right questions about how to solve those issues. And had we not asked the right questions, then we might have failed and I might have lost more clients. Now, I actually did lose a few because, in the fallout of it, it was almost a slow burn to the point where it's like, okay, business owner says, I just can't continue on like this. I'm like, well, we've done all we can. So there was an adjustment there. But then when we started to ask the right questions about data and all of the different things we could introduce into the system to see if it could work better, we weathered the storm. And in fact, when, with Facebook in particular, with the whole privacy changes, basically what that did is made the algorithm not as powerful in being able to find the right person at the right time, which was a luxury that nowhere in our history in the last, since human inception, since before Christ, did we have a smart algorithm that was able to find and predict the the right person at the right time with the right behaviors and the right data points to say, okay, this person has a high probability to convert from my ad, so let's show them this ad at this exact time because they've shown in the past to be able to do that and convert and buy something, right? And so people got really used to being algorithm dependent in that sense, where you start to believe your own hype. You see your result and you're like, I'm so good at this. Look at what I created. Look at what I produced. And then when that goes away and all of a sudden you're doing the same exact thing and all of a sudden it's just not working. It's just not working the way it used to. And the people are not buying at the same rate. And the cost to get a customer is so much more. And you're wondering like, well, what the heck's going on here? And there was a couple of phases there to that. One was knowing that there was going to be that suffering where the cost would go up. We'd have to weather the storm. But two, there would be people who would leave the platform. And I knew that once there would be this attrition that would happen because a lot of people only had the skill of, let me write a simple ad, attention, whatever, avatar, and just go for it. That didn't work as much anymore. And you had to differentiate a lot more and you had to do better in your messaging, which favored us. When others had barely any results, we were able to fine tune our messaging to get better results. And it was just like Ryan Dice said, he said, in this new world, he with the best copy wins. And so we took that to heart and said, okay, let's double down on our messaging because that is not algorithm dependent. That messaging is what moves a person. And so if you're speaking the right things from a place of truth, then people resonate with that and no algorithm can overcome that, or stop that. And that got us back on track. And of course, a coalescing of many factors like attrition and people who were so dependent on that didn't know any better would leave. So there was kind of like not as much competition, your cost per impression goes down. And I know I'm getting into some nitty gritty here, but I'm going somewhere with this. So once we learned that and stayed the course, we actually have gotten our clients back to like the results they were getting before all the iOS changes. And not for trying 5 times harder and putting in more effort and work, but because of having the momentum of mastering something and having a foundation to work with, and not giving up when everyone else did, we're now at a place where there's a lot less competition, because the quote unquote fickle crowd that kind of goes on the latest strategy, the latest, easy button, the latest flashing, thing, they weren't there anymore. Of course, they all went to TikTok, and of course that's a mess itself too, but that's a whole other story. And we're able to find the kind of scale that we need to. Like, I'm still spending $10,000 a day with one ad account with one client, and then started a second product for them and spending $5,000 a day with that one. Like, it's, and that scale is still there. Like, as much as people want to poo-poo it, Facebook ads are still the 10,000, the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And the other algorithms, like TikTok and others, just are not as robust as Facebook's with a lot of data.
Yeah.
And the good news is we learned how to integrate a lot of data solutions and things that really helped us with our tracking and be able to know what's working well. And so there's some of that, and some advances, but it takes asking the right question in order to even get there, right? So staying the course with that was something that, there's times where you come up against a wall and you think, is it worth continuing? And there was a lot more of those than I even like to admit, but we stuck with it. And on the other side of it, I now know that if there's someone who, a business owner that wants to continue on, and they probably had success at some point with Facebook, either with an agency or doing it in-house internally, they come to me and I can help them, and we get better results with it, right? So now it's more of a specialty niche thing where I can even charge more and pick and choose the type of clients I want to work with, and keep the riffraff away, and charge a premium of it, and what we also know is when you have good clients, they pay you better and they're more thankful for what you do.
Absolutely.
Big difference from someone who feels entitled, wants a deal, and is never grateful for what you have. And that they don't stick around us very long, because we're like, yeah, well, if you don't see the magic of what we're doing here, then there's plenty more that will. And I think taking that type of mindset into your business in every aspect, like, you don't want the bad business, you don't want the dirty business. Now, at times someone's starting out and they're thinking, I'll take whatever I can because I need to grow. But ultimately, if you're doing that, just be open to the fact that you're going to learn a lot of lessons about what you want and what you don't want, and be prepared for that, right? And that was the thing I had to go through. So now, and even with my agency, I got a lot of clients at one time that I realized, wow, I don't want these clients. And I have fired more clients than I've hired. And we turn down 9 out of 10 people that come to us, not because they don't qualify, but because we just don't have the infrastructure. But that speaks to the word of mouth that gets around, and the referrals that come in, and the people that want to come to us for that. And I'm very, get to a place where I literally tell them, like, hey, we have this unique thing. It's very premium. It's going to cost you more than going somewhere else, but your upside is probably going to be better. And you have to trust me on that. And if you can't, we're not going to work together. And being in that space, I now know for sure, operating from asking yourself the question of what is in alignment with me is one of the better questions to always ask in any situation, not just a resource scarcity or abundance, frame of mind, or if you need the business or you want as many signups as possible. Like, no, you don't, and although I wasn't the top #1 producer in my company, everybody in the company had respect for what we did, and trusted me, and trusted their people with me, Whereas we couldn't say that about everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like, and the when someone's not acting in alignment and not acting ethical, word gets around fast, really fast, within a particular environment, in an ecosystem or in a company, right? And so operating that way, those people have to continue moving along into different things.
Yep.
And the issue with that, and the metaphor I always like to use, is there's a lot of dead bodies beside the road on that journey. And you don't want that either. You don't want that blood on your hands, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a pretty visceral thing to say, but I don't think any other metaphor accurately conveys the gravity of what that feels like when you're in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back for a second to something that you said about the iOS changes, because I think it's really important also to think about, the fact that you were committed to mastery helped you navigate all of those changes and come out on top. But the other thing that I think where a lot of people give up in the midst of changes that might seem negative at first is that in the midst of those changes, there's also opportunity. And like, I remember when COVID first started and a lot of people canceled their Facebook ads because they just went into scarcity mindset mode where they don't have the ad budget anymore. And I started running Facebook ads right at that time. And I was getting like 20-cent leads, which was like unheard of before that happened. And so I think, and that's just one little example, but like with what you did, like you said, like there was a mass exodus from the people that didn't know how to manage these iOS changes because they didn't have the skill set to write the ads that were going to convert with these changes.
Yeah, the party was over.
And they were gone. And that, left an opportunity for you because you did have the skill set. And the reason that you had the skill set is because you've been working on that skill set as long as I've known you. So for like 10 plus years or whatever, you've been just honing in on that skill set and getting that, mastering it and tweaking it and changing it and getting better and better at it so that when these storms come up, we can weather the storms because we have the skill set. I think there are plenty of people running Facebook ads who, they don't even want to be a master. They've never tried to be a master. They just go on the interface and like click the buttons and fill in the blanks and hope for the best and maybe get some results along the way, but it's not an actual skill. It's like
Facebook ads are not the hot new strategy anymore. You see all the people, you watch the people that jump from strategy to strategy. And when I see that, I'm like, okay, you've already told me everything about you that I need to know. That part of it. Because iOS changes were not just Facebook specific. They were for every social media platform, right? So it happened everywhere. YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, anywhere Dig, Reddit, Discord, all of them. Same thing with, Apple just blocking the tracking and the cookies, so I've seen it everywhere. It wasn't just Facebook specific, but I think Facebook is a great example for people to understand because it is kind of like the not sexy, the not, the hard thing that used to work well and had such a pronounced drop off because it was the biggest and it had so much there. But at the same time, because it's the biggest, it still has a lot of data, still has a lot of users. It still works really well if you know how to use it. But yeah, persevering through that can be a difficult thing that the average person, and this is the entrepreneurial mindset in a nutshell, is the average person is not willing to do what it takes to really be successful.
Yeah.
And so that's the question you got to ask yourself is like, is the trade-off worth it? Talking about the quality of the question asked. And that's one of them. Is the trade-off worth it? If I stick around with this and I go with this, because a lot of people watch marketers and they see all the results they're getting and they tend to think it at face value, like, okay, this person's making way more money than I could ever even imagine. I want to do what they do. I want that, right? But then, and of course, as a marketer, they make it sound easy. And then they get into it and they realize, oh, it's not as easy as I thought. Everybody who has had success has worked at something, has learned a skill. They have a thing they do, And so people will run around, thinking they're getting actually burned and misled because someone's like, well, this is the strategy. And there's no way around learning it and putting the time and the effort to really wrap your mind around it and utilize it and screw it up and not get it right and not get success with it at first, to finally do it enough to where you start seeing the success and you start to follow that and learn that and cultivate that. And so with that piece of it, people don't get there. They usually stop because they're like, well, this person promised that this could happen like this, and they get those kind of results, so I should too. And after the first week, they're like, well, I'm not making 10 grand a month, so let me go somewhere else because this person lied to me. No, you're responsible for your own business. Now, who's responsible for it? You are. No one else is responsible for that. You put your trust in other people like that. Basically, what you're doing is you're saying, I don't trust myself. And that's one of the biggest things I see in the industry these days, is so many people following and trying to absorb and do everything like the people they look up to, without any critical thinking as to how does this work for me? Is this in alignment with me? And am I willing to do the hard work that it really takes? Because the honest reality is, as an entrepreneur, that like 90% of you will long-term not get what you thought you were going to get. And it will take much longer than what it is, than what you think it is, and much longer than what everyone promises to have any amount of success usually. And if you're not willing to deal with that, then get out of the game. Save yourself some suffering, because that's the path. And of course, there's a lot of people that make it sound easy. And you could speak and have that conversation and argument about ethics and how things are represented all day long. Like, we could talk about that, but at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because it's living in your own alignment. And does this feel right? And am I willing to do this way? And then after that, when you have that in alignment, then it's okay, pick something, master it. Don't change every week because you tried it and it didn't work. Like, that's the quintessential failing entrepreneur mindset, and will never work, So, yeah.
I like to think of it too, kind of like, if you think about a doctor, right? A doctor has a practice. A doctor is practicing and continues to practice for however many years he or she remains a doctor. And it's just constantly getting, honing in on your craft, practicing your craft. And that's the way that I like to look at this as well, because in order to become, to be able to be current with any strategy, with all the changes that are constantly happening, or to actually get really good results with it, we need to practice. I've had people say to me, well, I can't do what you do. I can't make videos like you make videos. And I said, well, you have to start somewhere. You don't have to do what I do. You can do any marketing strategy. But I said, I've been making videos for 16 years. So, and they're like, well, I don't have 16 years to get good at it. It's like, well, it's just a matter of practicing. Like you're not going to get better at it by studying marketing strategies. Like, the only way that you're going to actually improve on any strategy is to do it every single day. And so, like, for me, I've done videos. For Chris, he's done Facebook ads. And like, when you do it every day, you're practicing. And as you're practicing, you're improving, and you're also starting to get results, and you're starting to get paid while you practice. But you can't just expect to just jump in and get results, especially if you think you're going to model after somebody that's been in the game for, like, somebody that thinks that they're going to make their first YouTube video and get the same results that I get when I've been practicing for 16 years, like it's, like, you remember I used to teach about making videos, and I always said, like, talking to an inanimate object is really awkward in the beginning, no matter who you are. No matter what kind of personality you have, looking at a camera and having a conversation with yourself is just weird. And I feel like I looked like a deer in the headlights for the first 50 videos I made, but I kept making them. And that's where a lot of people stop. Like, I made 3 videos and I didn't get any leads. So obviously I suck at videos. I sucked at videos too. I'm still not, I don't consider myself a master, but I'm still practicing, and I know that sticking with one thing over the course of time is what has led to my success. It's what's led to your success. And it's what you, like you said, leads to a lot of people's success. It's the willingness to just practice.
Yeah, there's always the shiny objects, that can pull you away and be like, oh, like it's one of those things where right now, you look at, like, if from an agency standpoint, when we look at different marketing channels, and look at Facebook and then you look at TikTok, a chief marketing officer may look at the cost per impression on TikTok and go, oh, well, that's like a fraction of what it is on Facebook. Let's just put all our money there. Not understanding that there's translations and there's different ways to do it. And is our market on there? And are they going to respond in the way that you have to do it on TikTok versus the way you would do it on Facebook? There's so many nuances to those things, right? And seeing that gives a good indicator of, well, do I really want to start over again? Because I could look at that and go, well, yeah, there's cheap CPMs over there, but that's also like, if I jump and I leave, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with going over there and developing that, but I'm not a master at that, and I need to keep the main thing, which keeps things going, and then I can dabble and I can play, and if I choose to go into mastery at that, I can, but I have my mastery here, right? The problem is people leave what they've been working on. It's like the 3 feet from gold analogy. It's like the same thing. They leave it right before they start seeing results come in. So there's that. And that's why I think oftentimes in the industry, personal development it's so important in one way, but I think it's more so because it causes you to learn how to think properly. Not necessarily that some people think like, well, if I read these 6 books that I was told to read, then I'm going to have success. And it's like, no, it's not an A+B=C type of thing. Like, this allows you to expand your mental faculties and think about things in a way that you could not think before. And that's where growth comes from. And then your net worth and income and results and success and all of those things follow after that. But it's like, let's not mistake it. Like, I chose mastery, but I didn't choose mastery over reading, 10 pages a day in a book and being very consistent with that. Like, those things will help over time, especially when done daily and consistently. But, the misconceptions of what people think is going to cause them success is an interesting one, right? Because I chose to put my time into mastering my craft rather than trying to do all of the things like read certain books and do these certain things and write affirmations and these different things, which they all do work to a certain degree. They all kind of can be a bigger piece of an operating system or a strategy. But keeping in mind, like, the main thing is the main thing. I'm successful at what I do because I literally block out everything else and focus on it like a freaking crazy person.
Yeah.
To this day, attack it with the type of intensity that, a professional athlete would attack their training every day and be consistent with it, which is why they are a professional.
Well, that's why you are able to overcome obstacles. That's why I've been able to overcome, I've had my YouTube channel shut down multiple times, and YouTube has been like my main thing since the beginning. And so when my channel got shut down, back in the day, it used to get shut down because of flaggers. Remember, like, people would,
I had that too.
And so, like, rather than just being like, oh, my YouTube channel got shut down, I guess I need to find another strategy, I was like, I am going to appeal this. I actually just saw on my Facebook memories a couple of days ago a post that I did years ago saying, hey, everybody, my YouTube channel was shut down. I need your help. I need, and I would do whatever it took to get my channel back. And I had to do that more than once. And I remember being at an event and finding out that my channel was shut down, like, while I was at the event, and I was still like, I'm getting this channel back. So when you're committed to like mastery and to, being focused on something, you don't just walk away when the going gets tough. There are going to be obstacles, like, with the iOS changes and everything like that. Like, that's a huge obstacle. I bet there are, I don't know, but I'm guessing there are probably some other Facebook ad agencies that went out of business because of that, or that.
I know of many, many of them.
Yeah. And so again, like, that's part of being focused and mastery is being willing to, to having the wherewithal and the knowledge to be able to push through when the obstacles present themselves, and they will. I always like to look at obstacles as the universe's way of testing my commitment to something. I look at that, in all areas of my life, not just marketing, but it was like, okay, how bad do you want your YouTube channel back? What are you willing to do to get it back? Or, how committed are you to having YouTube be your marketing strategy? And I had already put in so much time. I wasn't going to walk away from it, So, anyway, I just thought that was worth pointing out. I'm going to ask you a question. I don't know if you're going to want to answer this question, but it came up. So just to kind of give people an idea about like the different way that you think when it comes to Facebook. And this is, we're using Facebook marketing as an example here, but I just think this is so important because like I said earlier, and like I always say, I feel like people are afraid to try something new or do things in a different way than what somebody else said that they should do or something like that. And when we're willing to think outside the box, sometimes we discover things, we discover our way, we discover a new way, we discover a way that works better. And, Chris was sharing some stuff with me the other night, and you don't have to say a lot about it if you don't want to, because I know it's, it's kind of your thing, but
no, I'd rather have everyone understand.
Yeah. So you were talking about something along the lines of the copy that goes into these ads and what people thinks works versus what actually works and why. And I think one of the things was like attention ... or asking a question first thing in an ad, and what you've discovered about that, and what works better.
Yeah, serve it up on a silver platter. Okay, here we go. All right.
This is so good.
Okay. So, what I noticed is, and this was actually by accident that I discovered this, which I kind of naturally did it. And the funny thing is it didn't actually become defined to me until somebody, asked like, should I do it this way? And I was like, no, do it this way. They're like, why? I'm like, well, because this and this. And then I was like, where did I get that? And I think it was just because I'd done it so much, I kind of picked up these intuitive things. So let's look at it like this. When I say Facebook, I want you to think about every social media platform also has this same functionality, because every platform is pretty much modeled and copied Facebook in the way that they set this up. You can go to Spotify, you can go to TikTok, you can go to LinkedIn, you can go anywhere, and they have the same basic system, which is they have every time an ad is shown to somebody, there was an auction that took place, and it was bid for by multiple people, and the winner of the bid was the one that showed the auction. So there's millions of micro auctions per day, like multi-million, trillions probably of micro auctions a day. Every impression that shows up as an ad is an auction that happened where you bid and you won, if it was your ad or somebody else's ad and they won the auction. And so there's a couple factors that go into this auction, not just your money. So in terms of bidding to win the auction, what I noticed is there was two factors, and this is what Facebook told us. Like when you look at how they explain this, they're a little cryptic about it because they don't want people to understand it so well that they game the system, which can be done when you are that smart and understand it, right? Like I see ways I could game it, but I also know that if I do that, I'm risking my reputation. So, and I'm risking my whole entire business because they say, okay, he's gaming the system, and then they shut me out, and here we go. Now I got nothing, right? And I can't afford that. I can't risk that. So, but at the risk of helping you understand what it is, and if you are smart enough to try to game it as much as possible, go right ahead. But I wouldn't recommend it. I'll tell you what I do. So there's two factors. One is essentially it comes down to conversion rate, or what Facebook calls estimated action rate. And the estimated action rate, stay with me, it's a little technical, but it's only two pieces. The estimated action rate is what they call the probability that the ad is going to convert for what you're optimizing for. So let's say you're optimizing for a lead. Well, based on past history of the other ads in your account, and any history of that particular ad get factored into the auction. And if they think your ad is more likely to convert than another ad that's similar, that's targeting the same auction, then you get more points in that auction, increasing the likelihood that you're going to win the auction. So basically what I'm saying is you're bidding with your conversion rate. The better conversion rate you have, the better you're going to win in the auction. And then the other piece of it is what's called the consumer experience. So this is really basically the feedback loop that Facebook takes so seriously. Is any negativity that comes from it, any negative feedback that comes from it, they want to minimize the amount of negative experiences that people have on the platform using their platform. So anytime an ad starts to get a lot of negative feedback, it lowers its overall score in the auction, and therefore you start losing auctions. And if people come to me and say, Chris, my ads are burning out all the time, they work for a couple days while they're in the learning mode, and then the cost goes way up, and then eventually I don't get any impressions. What happened? Why is it not spending my money? It's because you're not doing it right. It's like you're either accumulating too much negative feedback, which is the biggest silent killer of any ad, or you're not converting very well, which Facebook knows if there's a better ad that'll convert better, then we're going to show that one instead of the other one because it's more efficient. And the person who has a higher conversion rate is more likely to spend more and do more. And they want to reward the person who is converting at a higher rate so that they spend more, because then Facebook makes more money. So there's the piece of rewarding the person who's getting the result they want consistently. And they know that if they get you the result you want consistently, you'll continue to consistently come back and pay for ads. And the other part is protecting their users with the consumer experience. So there's two pieces: conversion rate and negative feedback or positive feedback, right? Because adversely, the consumer experience works both ways. If you have a lot of positive feedback, which is in the way of comments, likes, shares, reactions, loves, hugs, care, all of those little emojis, right? All of that, and the amount of activity someone has where they click see more to read the ad or click play on the video, all of that is engagement. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a lot of that, that will outweigh what you have. So oftentimes if you ran Facebook ads, this is an interesting thing. Stop me if you've heard this before. You have two ads running and you notice that one ad is getting a lower cost per result, cost per lead or something, right? And you're like, okay, but why is the other ad getting like 30% higher cost per lead, but yet it's getting like 80% of the traffic? Why isn't Facebook getting me the lower cost per impression? Like the lower cost per lead. Why aren't they optimizing to that? You would think like they want to get you the best cost result, and then you're going to spend more. True, but the other factor is the consumer engagement. And what you'll notice is, and this is a little hack for a lot of you to look at if you're running ads, is go back and look at those ads where you were thinking to yourself, why is that this ad has a lower cost, but it's not getting the most of the impressions? And you look at the one that does get the impressions, and it's simple to see is, one, you look at the CTR all, click-through rate all, not click-through rate link, but CTR all, which is all the clicks and all the engagement that happens. And what you'll usually notice in most cases is that ad has more engagement and a higher CTR all than the ad that got the lower cost per result. And it's because the consumer experience is very high and it's winning auctions at a rate that your other ad is not. Right. So it's interesting how because they value the user experience over the conversion. So if you have really good user experience, that's how your ads not only win, but that's how they sustain. When you have a good ad that causes people to take the right behaviors and engage at a high rate and then convert at a decent rate, that ad will last longer unless you're getting negative feedback. If you're getting negative feedback where people see it in their post, see it in their newsfeed and they hide the post, you have that option to hide all posts from this user or report it as spam, all of those things you can do. Those are all negative feedback experiences, yeah. Right? And so that'll kill things real fast. And and the way I'd like to say it is that I liken it to is a concept that my uncles actually said to me when I was growing up working for them. They said, one screw up deletes 10 attaboys. So you can do all these great things, but if you screw something up, it's like all those good things you did don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with these ads, with that algorithm and that auction. So with that being said, someone says, okay, well, how do I get the consumer experience really positive? And obviously the conversion rate, how do I get that really well? How do I get that high? Because that's mostly from the point they click the link in the ad to whatever conversion you're optimizing for, let's say a lead. So the conversion, like the opt-in rate, is going to be a really good indicator of the ad that has the highest conversion rate, which is affecting your estimated action rate, the probability to convert, right? So because that's a deeper conversation, right, about how to convert well. That's, some skilled stuff where you have to ask yourself a series of questions and whether or not a person wants your product and you're going to the right people and giving them the right thing and all that, which is the super hard part of being an entrepreneur and creating a product or service that solves a problem. But the other piece is the feedback. And so if we focus for a moment on the biggest killer, which is how to avoid the negative feedback and get more positive feedback, then it really comes down to a few things. And they're very counterintuitive. Because if you follow or listen to most direct response marketers, they follow the philosophy that they need to be very direct with you and have a one-on-one conversation. And I agree, but I agree when it's beyond the ad, when it's on your sales page or your opt-in page or your webinar or your sales video or whatever. Those things, I agree, need to be a direct one-on-one conversation. Here's the problem. We have noticed that any ad that is a direct question in the ad or uses the word you, where you're talking directly to somebody, like it feels like a one-on-one conversation, that we get a lot more negative feedback. Well, why is that? Oftentimes, let's use the example of, someone says, attention entrepreneurs. Well, what you've done there is that type of direct call out, the avatar call out, they sometimes call it the dog whistle call out. It's great for platforms that don't have a feedback loop because you can be very direct and there's going to be 98% of people that won't respond to it. Because with Facebook, you don't have that specific of targeting. You kind of have to go, you're always going to go to people that are not qualified for your offer. Mm-hmm. And so how do you minimize the negative feedback from those people? Well, it's the way you minimize it is you don't cause them to react and report your ad as spam or hide the post, right? And the way you do that is you don't say directly, try to call them out and be that specific in asking them a question or a self-identification question. Perfect example. If you're not looking to sell your home, and if a realtor writes an ad that shows up in your newsfeed and says, hey, are you looking to sell your home? ? If you're not looking to sell your home, then more than likely you're like, why is this showing up in my newsfeed? And mostly probably due to iOS privacy changes, right? But most people are going to be like, I'm not looking to sell my home. Hide this person. I don't need this, right? Negative feedback, right? So what we do is we create editorial headlines that are contextual, but not direct. Attention business owners is like what a lot of coaches I see that want to coach business owners. And firstly, you're not setting any context as to what's in it for the business owner. But secondly, if you're a business owner, if you're not a business owner, you're going to hide the ad, which gives more negative feedback. But two, if you are a business owner, you may have a few people directly respond to that. That's great. But there's going to be a lot more that are going to be like, who are you? And why are you trying to talk directly to me? I didn't ask for your help. Mm-hmm. Like that's the mindset. Like, you have the people that comment like, get off my news feed and stuff like that. Because unsolicited advice. And so everyone's like interruption marketing, that's what Facebook is. Actually, if you treat it as if you're not interrupting somebody, it's a little different. So instead, what we do is, as a perfect example with the real estate one, right? Because we've gone down that path. With real estate, instead of saying, hey, are you looking to sell your home? If I said something like, here's how homeowners, buy and sell Here's how homeowners sell their house in a down market. Notice I didn't say you. I didn't ask a direct identifying question. I just said a statement that would reply to a homeowner, that would apply to a homeowner. And what happens is people who are not homeowners that may be looking to buy, or people who are homeowners, will read that because they want to know more about it. But what they won't do is they won't give it negative feedback. But oftentimes an ancillary benefit of it is that they will tag people that they do know that are in the market, right? So you have even more engagement that happens from it. So you have a direct editorial voice type of lead in, and people respond differently to it. And they don't take it personal, and they don't try to get you off their newsfeed by reporting you. So what happens is the CTR all and all the engagement continues to rise and rise and rise, even if a lot of those people don't click through, but it's causing you to win more auctions. So for those it is relevant for, and they read the whole thing and they're like, oh, this applies to me. I want to know. I actually am looking to sell my home, and this is telling me how to do it in a down market. Yeah, I want to know this. And for those who are really ready at the right place at the right time, they click through. But what you've done is leveraged all the people, the power of a social community, to help you win auctions so that you can reach more people.
Yeah.
And so hopefully everyone got that. I have a literal rule in my agency, and I've literally set this from the beginning in my agency. Our ad writers, our copywriters, the golden rule, if you ask a direct question that has the word you in the headline,
you're fired
on the spot.
I love it.
Yep. And following that philosophy is why our ads sustain for years. While other ads, the crazy thing about this is the hilarious antidote to this. You have a lot of agencies, how they market themselves and differentiate themselves is they say, we have the infrastructure to test a lot of things at once, and we refresh our creatives every few days, so your ads never get old. That's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Like that's a coping mechanism for fundamentally doing something wrong. Right. So you're going to spend all this money and energy and time to pay extra people to hyper manage an account because the ads burn out every few days because they don't know how to write ads properly that help them in the algorithm. And no one knows this. So that marketing angle for an agency is actually really effective because businesses are like, yeah, the ads always, that's why we want to hire someone, because if we didn't have to, we don't want to set them up every few days. We want to hire someone to do that if that's what it takes. But you see, they accept that as normal. Right. So when they come across me and I'm like, no, your ads will run for months and months and sometimes even years, the same exact post ID. And they're like, sign me up for that. Let's see if this works, right? And sometimes some of them are like, you're full of it. Like there's no way that's not even their reality because they've been doing it wrong for so long and they didn't even know that they didn't know. So one of the things that the real takeaway here is think about it as not a direct one-on-one conversation, but use your editorial voice and speak to the benefits and the challenges that someone has to overcome. And don't try to talk directly to them by coercion or clickbait with very broad call outs that don't set any context for why they should listen to you. And that factor right there has literally, I've taught that to agencies. They didn't take my course. They didn't take my training. They didn't do any, they didn't get consulting from me. I literally taught them that from a free webinar. They will come back 6 months later and say, oh my God, we just implemented that one rule and changed what we were doing. And our ads do so much better. We're so grateful. We're so thankful. What can we buy from you? Can we get your consulting? Is there more to this? Can we go down this rabbit hole? We want to explore this. You've made us so much money. It's made such a difference. Just literally that right there. And that's literally like, I will never charge for people to understand that. Like that's my gift to the industry because I don't want to see the riffraff doing ridiculous, stupid things, repeating the same memes and the same concepts that have been watered down for years from traditional direct response. Those traditional direct response techniques and philosophies were never developed with a smart machine learning AI algorithm in place. We didn't have that feedback mechanism before. So I kind of like to call it indirect response with the ads itself, and then go do all that stuff on your page if you want to. But the direct, which is very hard for people to get, because the direct conversation piece is so ingrained in them that they don't know any different. But hey, if you have fun setting up ads every 2 to 3 days, then have at it, you know.
Well, I love how you talked about how the direct response conversation or the direct conversation with a specific person happens. It just doesn't happen in the ad. It happens on the next page, right? It happens on the opt-in page, or it happens on the sales page, or it happens in the email follow-up, but it doesn't happen on the ad itself.
You earn the right to talk directly to them by them reading your ad and then clicking over to your page, where then you've finally got permission, implied permission to talk directly to them.
And in the process, you're winning auctions on Facebook because you're not having that direct conversation too soon. You're not jumping the gun. You're not asking somebody to marry you on the first date.
Yeah. And also it's a compliance thing too. Like I get horrified when I look at some ad accounts where there's so many ads disapproved. So this is the other big piece that people make the mistake of. And it also stems from traditional direct response, which, by the way, I love it. I'm a nerd at direct response. I've studied every single copywriter and every direct response marketer on the planet, and I love that stuff. But I also understand its place. I also understand where it's supposed to be and where it's not supposed to be, more importantly. And the piece that often happens that people don't really get is this one-on-one piece, but then also the other piece is the big audacious promise, the big audacious idea. Sometimes in direct response, they call it the big idea. Like, what's your thesis statement? What is the big idea that you're what's the promise? What is the main end goal, right? And oftentimes, because Facebook they essentially created their policy to combat direct response marketers. People don't understand that. Like, they literally hate that stuff. And so if you make a claim, like what's called even in the FTC, which, Federal Trade Commission in the US, an unsubstantiated claim is against their policy. So let's say, you're marketing your business and you're like, hey, get my $500 a day formula, or my $500 a day process, or, hey, make a direct promise of join my biz and make $500 a day. You can't promise those things. They're unsubstantiated claims. And what does unsubstantiated mean? When you substantiate a claim, according to the FTC, this is very important. Pay attention to this. If not 100% of the people can experience the claim upon buying the product, then it's not substantiated. So that means the thing you can offer is, you're going to get this box in the mail, or you're going to get this particular blog. You're going to get this piece of software. You're going to get this funnel builder. You're going to get this training. That I can promise you. What you do with it and what you get from it, I can't promise that you're going to make $500 a day from it. I can't promise you're going to make $1,000. I can't promise all these other things, right? So one of the things that how this comes into play with compliance with Facebook, and has permeated into other social media platforms, is making the bold, unsubstantiated claims. But what that dovetails into, because a lot of people know that, like, hey, we can't make these crazy promises. Like, we know that by now. The moment you do it, your ad account shut down. Like, okay, I can't promise people a result that I can't back up and all that stuff. Even if 30% of the people are getting that result, it's not 100%, so you can't promise it, right? Yeah. But what this dovetails into is, and this is where Facebook uses this as their piece to shut you down for, is they say calling out a negative trait. It's a really common compliance thing that people call out a negative trait, and they don't want you to call out a negative trait. Now, why do they do that? Well, for one, they're all about self-esteem, and they want people to feel good on their platform, and they don't want people to try to manipulate people through guilt and through negativity, right? They don't like it on the platform. So what happens is, if you say something like, are you suffering from this? Are you suffering from indigestion, or something, like you're asking a question, but then you're also specifically asked, because if you said, are you suffering? See, now you're making it about the other person, okay? Instead of making it about the product. which is really hard for the network marketing and affiliate space to do, because they know how well, if you talk about the person, the result they're going to get, it's so much more effective in the conversions. Do that on your funnel. Don't do it on your ad, or you have no ad, you have no ad account, because it's going to get shut down, right? So the negative trait thing is an important thing where, are you, suffering to pay the bills? Question mark. Like, you're calling out a negative trait of the inadequate income and money. And that's like, you don't even want to mess with money on the platform, like, get alone other places, right? TikTok will just shut you down, not even tell you why they did it if you make that kind of a claim. But calling out the negative trait is the thing. And when you attach the word you to it, all of a sudden you're making it about them and not the product. Mm-hmm. So I have this concept that has been very revolutionary for anybody that talks about this. It's a part of my, core social rules of engagement, I call, right? And obviously the first one is don't, use you or ask a direct question. One of the other main core ones that we use, it's called make the mechanism the hero. Mm. And so the difference would be, instead of saying, hey, generate, how you can generate 100 leads per day. That is a non-compliant statement with Facebook, because they're like, okay, you're promising they can generate 100 leads a day. Not everybody who buys what you have is going to be able to do that. You can't promise everyone's going to do that, right? Mm-hmm. But then, so let's switch this around. Let's make what generates the leads the hero. So we say this process generates 100 leads a day. And as long as you keep it about the mechanism, which in the mechanism in this case would be the process. This lead generation process makes 2 sales per day, or 100 leads a day, or 50 leads a day, right? Then what I've done is I haven't made it about them. I haven't said you. I've made it about the process, the mechanism, the delivery, what Facebook refers to as the product or the offer. And so I've been able to use that to say, all right, I'm going to use my mechanism. My unique messaging generates 100 leads per day. That is compliant because I made it about the mechanism being the hero, and the mechanism having the result of something that already happened or something that is happening. And I didn't do the stupid thing that a lot of people do, which is, and you can too at the end of it, right?
The promise.
Like that, the promise, right? So you can't do that. But displaying the authority, the credibility, and the proof of work up front that is substantiated, because now I've been able to substantiate my process has generated 100 leads a day. I didn't promise yours would work. I didn't promise that you would have that 100 leads a day. I said my process. Let me give you this process that generates for me 100 leads a day, or has generated for me 100 leads a day. That's compliant.
Yeah.
Facebook can roll with that because now we've made the mechanism the hero. We haven't made it about giving somebody a claim or an unsubstantiated claim. You see the difference here? Like how shifting the focus from the person to the mechanism protects you. It insulates you from compliance and from ads getting disapproved. And see, if I was to work with anybody who was in the business, in the industry, network marketing, affiliate marketing, make money online, anything like that, right? Because I don't even work with make money online. Just, teaching people how to coach or sell or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Or product creation. Like I don't even, anytime I have, it's these few principles that have helped me to keep their ad account going and be safe. As long as we understand that we still cannot do that on their funnel. Like we still can't make those unsubstantiated claims on our sales page or our opt-in page. Like that has to be congruent throughout the entire process. A lot of people, they're like, okay, well, that's only on Facebook. No, it's the entire ecosystem of wherever that Facebook pixel is embedded on their pages becomes subject to, and the offer itself. So even if you don't have a Facebook pixel on the offer, if that's where you're sending them, it's implied that whatever's on your ad and your offer is a part of that ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So making those unsubstantiated claims are basically the core of it all. Now we know on other platforms that is what usually converts the highest, by promising somebody they'll get a result. Here we have to demonstrate that by showing the results something is getting and then making the mechanism and that process the hero versus trying to make them the hero.
Mm-hmm.
And that shift was the thing that helped me build massive businesses inside that industry and outside of it with lots of other things, especially like real estate investing, right? Because that's really like highly controlled. And so I helped a few people with that, and I had to help them understand that you could not say like you make this much passive income, from rentals and all. Like you can't say any of that stuff. You have to be very careful about the mechanisms that make this work and focus on those. And when we did that, they never had issues with their ad accounts. So for someone who's in the affiliate space or the network marketing space that wants to build their business on any social network, what I just explained is the biggest reasons why your ads get shut down. And if you lose your strategy and lose your account, you lose like your ability to generate income and leads and sales, right? So if you don't take this as gospel, you are playing Russian roulette. Live by the gun, die by the gun. So don't use the gun. That's what it comes down to.
Such an amazing distinction. I hope you guys got that. You might have to listen to this again. I know Chris's knowledge sometimes is like a fire hose because he's got so much of it that it's like.
Did you see what you said? Silver platter. You served it up.
Yeah, no, it's so good. Like I just hope that you guys got everything that he just said, because I just think it's so valuable. It's so good, and it's worth listening to again to really understand that. Especially, I mean, even if you're not doing Facebook ads, I think it's just really good copywriting strategy information. Like I don't know. I just think it's just really it's a different way of looking at how to speak to your audience and how not to generate negative feedback from people that might not be your target audience, while at the same time having them help you get more eyes on your ad because they're tagging the people who are your target audience because they're not blocking you. And it's so good.
Don't use you in your headlines. Don't ask a direct question, and never make unsubstantiated claims. Make the mechanism the hero.
Yeah.
If you follow those things, businesses have come to me and I've only changed that with their ads. They didn't have to do anything else because everything else was good, but they were just having a problem with that. Couldn't get the ads to continue to run because of that, getting all their negative feedback. So that right there is, if you want to know how to protect yourself from getting your ad accounts shut down, this premise works for Facebook and it works for almost every other platform in one form or another. Now, the tough thing with Facebook is they won't tell you what to do. They only tell you what not to do. And when I've pressed them, they have literally said, we can't tell you what to do because that will give grounds for those who want to game the system. Like they're so afraid of the 2% that continue to run and set up new accounts and do all this crazy stuff and game the system, that they kind of forget about the 98% that need that direction. And I mean, it's not like I figured this out overnight. It was literally like someone was like, well, why don't you do it this way? And I'm like, well, actually, because anytime I do that, it hasn't worked. And we've had ad accounts shut down and disapproved ads. And they say it's because of this. Well, what do you do instead? Well, I do this instead. I'm like, oh, wow. People really need to know that. So it was literally like a trial and error of stepping all over myself before I figured that out. And it took years to really understand it entirely. But now anyone comes to me with ads and I can pretty much pinpoint, like, you're either making an unsubstantiated claim and a promise, you're using the word you, which puts you into the whole negative, calling out negative traits. And those things right there alone are the most important parts. And when they change that, they're good to go. So it gives you a safer operating environment to do that with. And I don't agree with how Facebook is so secretive about it, but that's the world we live in. But also look at it from an entrepreneur's opportunistic standpoint. Because a lot of people don't know that, they won't market on Facebook. If you understand that and you live by that, you can continue to market on Facebook where there's not a lot of competition anymore because people don't understand these things.
Yeah. So you just got this secret information right here, right now. This is huge. And also, not only are you protecting yourself, but I know Chris shared with me that you've had clients that have used this information with his help create an ad that literally runs for years and continues to produce without having to even change it, which is amazing on Facebook. I mean, think of how much time that can save you, not to mention you can scale that. I mean, if you have an ad that's working over the long term, you can throw more money at it. It's like printing money at that point.
We had an ad with one account that was a picture of a dog in a hot tub with a 3-year-old kid and just kind of sitting there with it, and the kid's like trying to pet it. Had nothing to do with the product, which was a pet stain and odor remover. And that picture, we used the same exact post ID with that picture and spent over $500,000, over $500,000, not multiple ads, one post ID, the same post ID. That's the power of it. And yeah.
And how much did that generate? That 500,000?
I think about $1 million. It was about 1 to 2 return. Yeah. So, yeah, do another quick $500,000. Why not? Yeah. And so we repeated that process.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I'm super grateful that you just shared all of that with us. And he also shared, I don't know if you guys caught this, but the law of reciprocity, and you guys can apply this as well. Like when you freely give your gifts and your knowledge and your wisdom, people not only benefit from that, but then some of them are going to come back and say, I want more. How can I hire you? How can I work with you? The information that you gave me made a difference in my business or in my life, and I want more of that. And so, Chris has shared that's what he's like. He could hide this information, and he has figured this out. Not to mention, he just shaved the learning curve off for all of us. Like, this took years for him to figure out this what he just showed us. And now you have the information, and it doesn't have to take years. And so, that's super generous. He could charge money for this information, and he's freely giving it here. So I just want to mention that, because I think it's important for us not to feel like we have to hoard our knowledge, and that, it's good to give it away. It's good to share it and make a difference for people. And that's how we build rapport with our audience. And it's how we make a difference in the world, which I don't know about you, but that's what I want to do. And I'm not going to do that by keeping all the secrets to myself.
Great marketing angle.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the secret is there is no secret.
Mm-hmm.
But 99% of advertisers enter the Facebook platform and leave the Facebook platform never understanding that, what I just taught.
Mm-hmm. So you have an advantage if you're listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say thank you again for being willing to share that. And I know we've been going for a while here, but before we wrap it up, that was like a mic drop conversation right there. Like, I feel like we could end it right here, but I just want to ask you if there's anything else that you want to add to the conversation that we've had today that you think might be beneficial for people to take away from this conversation.
I think the thing that I always keep in perspective, and this just goes back to all the experiences we've had throughout the different businesses and the team and all the things that happened. It was something that was said by somebody in some other company and in books and everything else at some point. And I think it does ring true when we ask the question as to why we should operate the way we do and live in alignment with ourselves. So that's the question. Why should we live in alignment with ourselves? And here's why. All it takes is for enough good, living in alignment people who are true to themselves to say nothing or to do nothing, and the forces of evil will take over. And so if there's any other reason, you being there by proxy makes it okay for others to live in alignment. And when you do that, and you truly are there, personally, I've never seen anyone who hasn't seen their life transform when they operate from that place. It's not easy to do. Sometimes you won't, sometimes you will. And make it a habit of getting back to that place as much as possible, getting back to center and getting back to alignment with living your truth and being real with those around you. Because what I've learned is, although sometimes what you see with others and you point out may be hard for them to take, it serves them. And I dedicated myself a long time ago to acting in a way that serves people's highest good, not my lowest good, not my profit, not my gain, not my feeling like I can shrink and then just be accepted by people. They respect me because I have the opinion. They respect me because I set those boundaries. And because I'm not willing to accept anything less than their best of who they are. And because of that, they respect me. And the fallacy I had before was all those things I thought I couldn't approach because then they wouldn't approve or like me because of it. Mm. And so if anything else, living in truth and speaking your truth and remembering that other people have their own truth and you've got to be able to meet them there and respect them in that truth. You're not always going to agree. You're not always going to have the same thing. You may disagree on things. That's perfectly normal. And that's our birthright to be that. So don't fall into the trap of others that would want you to believe something for their own agenda instead of yours. And always think about the question being asked. And when you're wondering whether or not the advice you just got from somebody is good or not, it's really about asking yourself questions about that advice. Not necessarily, is it right for me, but let's ask it some questions. Let's question the answer. And in that space, that's where the sovereign individual comes out. Mm. And I choose personal sovereignty.
So good. You want to tell people how they can learn more about you, or?
No, I'm a ninja. No one finds me.
I wasn't sure how he would answer this question because he kind of hides out a little bit, but I know you, and you don't have to share this, but you have a course, don't you?
I do. It's, for one, it's costs a lot of money. So let's just say that. And just to repeat, if someone wants to come to me to hire me to run their ads, obviously, if it's in the make money online network marketing affiliate space, we just don't do it as a rule to not jeopardize our customers. All-in-one business manager can't have that happen. So we apologize there. But I have, obviously a few different programs. And pretty much what we do now is, either one-on-one consulting and coaching, or a program I call Code Methodology, which if we don't bring people in who are in particular niches that may be sketchy or non-compliant to Facebook. So again, if it is a network marketing, we'll probably say you're probably not right for this program. But if you do have a business outside of that, where maybe you've learned a few things and you set up a Shopify store, or you've created something else as a result of being in the industry, or maybe you were just a blogger in the first place and you kind of always done your own thing. We can help you with those things. And, our program walks you through our full entire system of how to do that messaging. And just by inherently, the messaging system itself doesn't work for make money online, because we are using a specific set of benefits that we can promise. And in nature, you can't make money promises, right? So there's that. So other than that, like I oftentimes, upload rants to my YouTube channel, and then, post periodically on my page and on my wall. And, but really what I taught here, that's kind of like more than half the battle, right there. So yeah. But we do some one-on-one stuff for certain cases. So if you think that you might have something unique, that you've either created or attempting to sell, you can go to northnodesolutions.com, North Node Solutions, and that's just our website, our agency website, and you can fill out an application and we can talk to you about whether or not you want to do any one-on-one coaching, because we do mindset coaching as well, which I often find very valuable for people. And then, it always dovetails into strategic stuff and how that plays out with strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the core of it, I'm a strategist, I would like to say. And when you can be strategic with the right mindset, that's when things really start to move fast. So there you go.
Good stuff. And I'll, any links that he shares, I will put in the show notes as well, so you guys can find them there. And I just want to say thank you for all of the value that you dropped today. I really hope you guys will listen to this episode again, especially if you're running Facebook ads. But I think it's valuable even for people that aren't, just to kind of understand the best way to speak to your audience for the best results. And some of the things, like Chris said, that have taken him years to figure out, that he just gave you all right here on a silver platter. So thank you for being so generous, and thank you for everything that you shared, and for being on my podcast, and for all the amazing time that we've gotten to spend together here in Aspen, Colorado.
Aspen. Yes.
Yeah.
We love it here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's a wrap. So we will be talking to you guys in the next episode. I hope this has been valuable, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.